Hey, did you know No Time Like Joe Time is on YouTube and it's a podcast? Well, I'm glad you did. I would ask you to share it, but you probably wouldn't because you're too scared. Too scared to share the channel. Oh, poor little person. Whew. One thing I like about this podcast is how well I know I connect with the audience. Really good at it. Yeah, chickens. Welcome to No Time Like Joe Time, where we transfer data into our brain and we make meaning out of it with the best computer of all, our brains. I'm Brain Johnson and I'm your host, Brain. Every episode, I invite a new brain to talk about media and brainstorm what they mean. Today's brain may be the smartest brain I ever did meet. She is an amazing data analyst and all-around cool brain. Welcome, Anna Miller. Anna, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. It's really good to see you.
Thanks, Joe. I'm so glad to be here.
So for those who are listening, I've asked Anna to do Joe Time first. I asked Anna to create some art that speaks to her. I also made some art as well. I really like feelings. And I like to take those feelings and put them up in a ball of paint and then draw on a paper all of my feelings. And thank God there are so many colors. There's one color for every 5 of my emotions I have. But Anna, since you are my guest, why don't you go first and show us what you've done?
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. I loved being able to create some real art here.
Yeah.
So I collected data on how many people in New York actively block any media from you. As we can see on this first map, word of mouth really spread and people very quickly blocked any content from you, from YouTube videos to podcasts, and even people going on Facebook to block your profile just to be safe. So next, I looked at if we found a way to charge people money to block you, how much revenue could that have made for a company? And if you see the second graph, we would have made almost $60,000 in just under 2 weeks. That speaks value to your appeal, Joe, and it's just art in the making.
Okay. Let's put aside this is hurtful. I have 2 questions for you. First, uh, why'd you pick data to analyze?
Oh, all my friends and family have started asking if we were safe from the Joe content, and so I just had to investigate.
Okay. Okay. And second question, just little question. Why did you do this? I said art.
This is art, okay? Like, look at the story the data tells. You can take random numbers and tell a story, predict the future, or understand trends. It's pure art.
Anna, I meant like painting or drawing. I worked really hard on my art.
Oh, sorry, Joe, but I'd still really like to see your art.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Here it is.
Oh, that's really nice. Is it supposed to be you?
What? No, it's a shark from a side view. Does everybody say that? Can you tell me how to block my content? If you were actually doing an art project or somebody said art, would there be any chance you would actually do data?
Um, let's see. I'm trying to think, like, genuinely, if you'd asked me to show you art right now, what would I have grabbed?
Yeah.
Probably not, because I actually am decent at pencil drawing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I actually I don't have any pictures
Oh,
well,
shoot.
but yeah, like I actually did used to. However, if you made it like more general and you just said like, show me something you're weirdly proud of
Oh,
you made,
sure.
then I would probably pull out my personal like data finance spreadsheet that's got like all of my monies and where they go every month, and I can guess where I'll be in 6 months and stuff like that.
Picture like coming to your house and you have some pictures of family, but then there's picture frames of data sheets.
Honestly, that would be honestly that'd be pretty iconic. I feel like that's not too far from the truth. A framed physics problem above me. Oh my God, I totally should have done that and just put like physics right there.
Oh, that would have been great. Oh, that's hilarious. This episode, so how I decide to do each episode, there's a few factors. One is if the person, like I've had some people be like, these are the clips I want to use. I'm like, cool, let's do it. I had other people who are like, these are the shows I want to use. Cool.
Mhm.
But a lot of it comes down to something that I feel speaks to me about the person. And I'm really good at connecting dots where maybe there's not dots. And because you were such like, for those who didn't, well, nobody knows this except for maybe our friends. Why would our general audience know this? Anna and I worked together. She was a data analyst and she was just, you were wicked good at it. And I could tell you were good. I always told people like when we were in a room and somebody was like, I need to know how large this area is and how much money we're spending on this, and then what that would look like if we switched it out to this. And I would just shrink in my chair. And the further I shrunk in my chair, the higher Anna would like perk up and be like, oh yeah, let's do it. And I just have to say that is why I'm so grateful. We are all so different because nope.
A million Joes would have never found the area of the warehouse.
That is so true. There would just be a lot of comforting and support of like, you know what? The area of the warehouse is in our hearts, guys. Yeah, you're right. We love each other. Yeah. So today we got some clips from the Great North, and I actually had not really heard of this when you suggested it. This was among your shows you suggested.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, why, if you could you tell us why you suggested the show and what your history is with the show?
Yeah. So my senior year in college, right before our like midterm break, my roommate and I got COVID. And we didn't get anything like super bad, except that we got like the exhaustion side of it. Like
Yeah,
we would literally sit on the couch all day and still just be so exhausted and going to bed at 8 p.m., which for college seniors is like really early. Like
yeah,
we were usually a 2 a.m. kind of pair.
yeah,
Um, and she just popped it on one night as like an easy show where like you don't have to pay a whole lot of attention. It's a really
yeah,
good, like passive, comfortable show. If you fall asleep and wake up 25 minutes later, it's not a problem.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, so now I watch it like sometimes when I miss her, like I'm not gonna lie, like sometimes I'm like,
Mm,
oh, I miss living with her. So then I pop on some of our like favorite comfort shows.
yeah,
That's how I started it. And recently, my boyfriend and I just like picked it back up. Like we wanted a comfort show and I suggested it and he agreed. And we blasted all the way through everything that's been out
yeah.
like really quickly. So it's kind
Oh,
of fresh
nice.
in my mind recently since then.
Yeah, well, a couple things I didn't realize. I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this was made by the guys who did Bob's Burgers.
Yeah, we like to joke it's the same family, but they're in Alaska this time and a fishing boat instead of a restaurant.
That's not too far off. Um, yeah, I I will say Bob's Burgers is the number one requested show.
Interesting. It's a
Uh,
good show.
yeah, I will say like it may not be like I've had two people who are just like we're doing Bob's Burgers. That's it. And then Bob's Burgers have popped up when people are like, "Well, I like this show and this show." It's hands down Bob's Burgers. So I think that's becoming quite the phenomenon. So it's a good So definitely a good show to check out if you like Bob's Burgers. And then
Yeah.
the other thing too is I was looking at, it's got a lot of heavy hitters for
Yes.
talent. Because I was like, I'm like, is this Will Forte? It's Will Forte. I love him. And there's just a lot of really cool people in it who I just really like. So the main guy, the dad, is Nick Offerman. Then there's Jenny Slate, Will Forte. Those are the main people who I knew, but I love them. And so I watched a couple episodes and then I did some like best of clips. And I'm like, yeah, this is probably a show I could get into. So it's a good selection. The first clip we're gonna watch. So this is they find a long lost relative who's been living in a bunker.
Is that?
Yep, the TC320 carbonizer, a world-class urine filtration system.
Wow.
Turns my tinkle into clean, potable drinking water that barely even tastes like tinkle. Just a hint, but you want that.
Oh, thank you so much, but I had Tinkle for lunch.
Ooh, Dr. Bojangles energy crackers. Ugh, these are awful. Ugh. And yet I can't stop eating them. These crackers make me want to start a business. I'm talking synergy, I'm talking seed funding, I'm talking leverage, I'm still talking.
Judy, it looks like Dr. B's ECs are mostly ephedrine, which is speed, so maybe don't need any more.
Yep. Just this box. And hey, Ham, let's roll some calls, get my boy Greek on the line.
On it! Oh, and let's have Kevin order a bunch of sushi for when the investors arrive. Kevin!
I just love it.
What it makes me laugh is that reminds me of so many business people I know. Let's get this. Let's go. And just like, man, are they on speed?
I don't know. I love it. I love it.
Part of the reason that I kind of thought about you first, the urine converter. I'm like, this is a data analyst job to take waste and turn it into something useful.
Yep. And it would also be our job to analyze the problems with the outcoming and test it until it was no longer disgusting.
Yeah. And I like to, like, I'm the guy in that situation. He's like, oh, do you want some? No, I had Tinkle for lunch already. I'm good. Just like everybody else is like, I don't want to touch that.
I would totally offer it to you too. Like I'm the old lady for sure. I'd be like, look at this cool thing I have. Do you want to try it?
Well, that's what you've done is like, you'll be like, oh, look at this. Look how this. And I'm just like, it's a lot of information. There's this shows why I started this podcast, because I always have to use references. There's this Futurama episode where the ship is something happens with the ship where it crashes. And Leela comes with a binder like this big. And she's like, this is my report on what happened. And Bender goes, I don't want to read it. Sum it up in one word. She goes, sabotage. But like, I feel like that's how a lot of us are. And I wonder if you've experienced this as a data analyst where people are just like, no, don't give me all the details. Just get to the point as quick as you possibly can.
Oh, definitely. Sometimes I get so excited too, because I'll be really excited about like the thick report I just read. And I'll be like, guys, look at this. I've got it all laid out, every single detail. And they're like, okay, what's the answer? And I'm like, well, I have to stay hype about it because, like, of course, I mean, it's me, right? I was still excited. I was like, it's this number.
Yeah.
So
the other clip I almost took was from a Simpsons episode where they go to Martin's birthday party and there's a guy in like a magic outfit. And they're like, oh, can you do a balloon animal? He's like, oh, I'm not that kind of magician. I'm a math magician. But I also think that, I mean, people who do stuff like that, I don't think you can do it without a passion. I could be wrong, but I think I don't think I've ever met somebody who's like, oh, I just did 2 hours of data work on this. I mean, I have, but I don't know how good they are at it. It's like I had a math teacher in college. And I remember when I went there, I was like, I hope he's not a typical math teacher. And what's a typical math teacher in my mind? Well, it was my math teacher, who, when we got there, he's like, well, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is so-and-so. I have a daughter. She is in college. We are very proud of her. Now let's talk about math. And like, he got so psyched. I'm like, what? But he was one of the best teachers because he was so passionate about it. And I feel like your passion for that stuff, like her passion for, and I think she thinks, what is the line? Better to be dead than red. She thought commies took over. And so that's why she has all this stuff. She's found a way to survive. And so she's like super resourceful and she's excited about this. And I think in a survival situation like this, yeah, you got to be excited. Like whatever you do, you got to have passion about it. You got to be excited about it. Yeah. And like see, again, I was listening to a episode I did with one of my buddies, and he was like, we're getting deep for no reason. I feel like you need to find something that feeds you to do that. What feeds you? For like, they had those little crackers. But for me, like my excitement comes with working with people. I love building people up, giving them confidence. Like I love it. I get like a high almost out of it. And so like I kind of work in the mental health field, and that can be draining. And I don't think you can do that unless you have that drive. And just like you work with data, I don't think you can do that unless you have that drive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely could not work in the mental health field. That is for sure. That takes I always say, like, that takes a special kind of person. It's not me. But yeah, I love working with data. I feel like, math teachers, they always say like, well, there's a right and there's a wrong and it's very measurable. And like when I was younger, I thought that was like the dumbest thing. I was like, that's not a reason to love it. Only that is why I love it. Like I love, like, you can look at just the set of data, you can get a clear answer, and it's very actionable too. Like I love like seeing, I especially love when the data, like, it lines up and you're like, there is a solution, here is what we do. And it's just such a clear path forward. Like, yeah, that's totally like what excites me inside of this, is like I actually love having that clean answer with, like, especially when the question is something I care about too, I think. Like, well, if the question is like, how many cockroaches does it take to eat a loaf of bread? Like, okay, I'm morbidly curious, but I'm not going to do this more than once. But like, if it's something where like the question is motivating too, I think that's even bigger part of it. I think is like a motivating question with a clean answer and an action is like, that's what I love. Like, I love to get excited about, like, what are we fixing? How are we doing it? And why is that the best way to do it?
That's so cool though. I think, how I see the world is looking at that. I'm like, if we didn't have people like that, we wouldn't be able to say like, hey, this percentage of people are homeless because of these reasons, and this is where we need the most support. Like it's because we need people to analyze that data. And so it's always easy to look at somebody like, oh, they're working with people. What a saint. But at the same time, I couldn't do what I do if people weren't realizing like, oh, hey, look, here's numbers that show we actually need this. Here's like, so my new role as a peer support specialist, like a lot of people are like, we don't know what that is. And it's because it hasn't been around for very long. I think it started in the 70s, but for those who don't know, a peer support specialist is, you've got to hit a very like thin line of criteria, which is you have had to have a mental health crisis or be in some kind of recovery, but you also have to be functional enough to be able to be supportive. And you have to get certified through the state. Like that is like legally you have to be certified. And so I was able to get certified and starting that job. And so basically will be working with people who are trying to get back on track and just talking, using my story to help them see like, hey, there's hope. But it's because there was data analysts showing like this is actually effective. It's still going on. So I just think in a grand scheme of things, it's so cool how like everything matters. Can I ask what do you think has been the most meaningful data you've ever like? What is the most meaningful question that you found answers for?
Oh, that's tough. Okay, this one might seem minor, but
Okay.
so for a while, at my job, both of my parents, my boyfriend and my roommate were working there with me, all on different levels of the company.
Yeah.
None of us ever worked together. Well, not quite none of us, but I never worked with any of them directly. And there was this problem in the warehouse where people who didn't usually work in the warehouse would go and help them. And these people, well-meaning, were doing lots of help, but they would also make small mistakes. And then later, an order going out of that warehouse would actually get returned to the company because of these mistakes. And my boyfriend and my roommate were both like getting dinged with these like, hey, you messed this up. Hey, you messed this up. And like they were both frustrated because they're like, I really don't think it was me. Like, I don't think this was my fault. And so I got to spend some time building a system to track the orders just so that when somebody would ship an order or like anything they did with it, it would attach a name to it. And then later I got to analyze the data and see which orders came back and which ones didn't. And I made sure everybody working at the company had a barcode that they would do. So if anybody in the company helped, if an order came back, we always knew what happened. And it was like, it's a really small thing, but I just remember like being really proud that like these people who are very dear to me, like I got to find a concrete problem and analyze and find a real concrete solution. And so like maybe it's not the most meaningful to the world, but to me, I was always just like I made a real difference right there just for the people who I do care about. Like I made their day a little better.
Yeah.
So
Well, what comes to mind, there's a line I will always love. It's from a movie. And there's this little old lady who's trying to work hard to get this like mayor voted in. And her grandson goes, Grandma, he's not going to change the world. And she goes, I don't live in the world. I live in this neighborhood. And that's all I need changed. And so I think about that where, I mean, I think so many people can relate to this. Like if you're on the ground floor, if anything goes wrong, it's like, oh, it's you. And to be able to have that validation, be like, no, that one wasn't me.
mhm.
I think that's very meaningful. And like you said, these were people you really care about and were able to just give some validation to. It
Yeah,
would have been funny if everything came back, Joe. Joe.
that would have.
We removed him and errors went down 300%. Production went 300% up. Uh,
You know, I never did that analysis after you left. I never ran a have errors changed significantly. Now, I almost wish I had just for this moment.
because we found out we didn't need to. Things were going swimmingly. I side note, I was working with somebody and I was doing these bits and he goes, you really like torturing yourself, don't you? And I'm like, I do. It's so funny.
Yes. Yes, you do. Just in case any of you guys listening don't know, when Joe leads a team, when I was there with him, every morning started with a joke. Every single
Yeah.
morning. And most of them were self-deprecating, and I think we all lived for it. Like it was like we looked for it like 8:15, Joe was gonna make fun of himself. It would be a great start to the day.
I I also always liked for me, my thrill of the day came from watching everybody's eye roll and get that sense where people were asking, what's my life? And just,
What decision did I make that led me
yeah,
here?
why did I do this? For our next clip, we've been kind of talking about art and how it can come in different forms. we've got another clip here where basically one of the characters has been looking to make a mural and she's pretty excited. And then somebody comes in and kind of takes things in a different direction, let's say.
Mural time, and wowza, look at this turnout.
I only joined this club so that I could storm out. Here I go.
Okay, hi, John. I want to thank you all for volunteering to be here to help me birth my artistic child. And I'm refusing the epidural because I want to feel when this thing crowns. Hello, everyone. Your first lesson about art isn't about what you see. It's about what's going on underneath.
I think she's talking about that tiny hat.
Should we go start prepping the wall? Not so fast, Judy. We don't even know what we're going to paint yet. No, I have a few ideas. Judy, we'll get to it. But first, I'd like to run through a series of exercises to see what we'd like to scream to the world. Let's begin. Each student will answer one important question. What do you think when I say art?
Peanut butter.
That's my first trick.
I have to say, could you imagine data analysts acting like rock stars or like divas like that? I will not present the data until I have my peanut M&Ms.
I would love to be able to do that. Can you imagine? I would love to be able to present data like that. Be like, actually, someone could get me a coffee, then I'll load the sheet.
Or an alternate reality where like data analyst has become like the rock show. We're like, we're going to see Anna Miller. She's gonna show a graph on how like the different life spans of different animals and what environments, and like you're just going through stuff and people are like, ah.
Wow. I mean, I would love to see someone lose their mind when I use like a control enter function on Google Sheets. That would that's my life goal now. Thanks, Joe.
Somebody out there. I just have to also say, I love the guy who's like, I only joined this club so I could storm out.
I love him. He's a great character. I also absolutely love Judy just like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
Like, she just unfazed.
Oh, I laughed so hard at that scene. Just the only reason I joined this club to do it. That cracked me up. And yeah, I loved the lady who came in and just, what do you think of art? I still wonder if I should have. I almost added the next clip in where they're all screaming on the ground and they're like, oh, okay, how'd that feel about art? It feels like seemingly it has nothing to do with art.
That would be, yeah, that would be funny. I mean, that's a good scene too. I love it.
Yeah, but just that, I like that guy. There's some people who just don't have that artistic touch. I know I have some creativity, but the creativity in the sense of like making a painting or doing this drawing where like abstract art, like I love going to the art museum and seeing all the stuff people do. I'm like that kid they're like, what's art to you? Peanut butter? And just way off.
Good try. Not an invalid answer because there's no wrong answers because it's not math, right?
Yeah. That I was going to ask you about that. So with the data analysts, is there, again, getting deep for no reason, is there a part of it that you like it because there are solid answers? I mean, is it like, and not just because they're solid answers, but is there something peaceful about it? Like sometimes I will do overtime when I don't feel like things are going smooth at home. Like if we're struggling with money or something's going on health-wise, like when I'm at work, there's a control sense. So I'm just curious if you have any of that or not at all.
Definitely. No, when I have a rough week at work or at home or whatever, you'll totally find me like just extra balancing my little finance spreadsheet. And like it's got like 8 tabs, it keeps track of everything. Like it's totally a relaxing thing to me. Especially like this sounds so nerdy. Like it's a familiar spreadsheet. Like, I built this spreadsheet. It's really cool. It's got a lot of functions in it, but I know all the things inside of it. So if I decide like, I think I would like to use a slightly different average in guessing my savings next year. Like I know the function, it's really easy to just hit and watch the changes.
Yeah.
Watch that like potential, savings value or the
Yeah.
like the potential numbers like change. And like I have a different spreadsheet that I built. If you've ever seen the Wordle, um New York Times has a different one that's a square. I don't
Yeah.
know, you might want to cut this out because it's irrelevant, but I'm cool. It's cool. So
No. We're gonna keep this in.
okay. So it's a square and each part of the square has three letters on top and you draw lines from the letters to create words. And your goal is to create a chain that includes all the letters with the least number of words. Um and I was having a rough week. So I put the square and the one that was for that day into a spreadsheet and I just started like creating all like millions of combinations of letters and then I imported a dictionary and I just like look up if it's in the dictionary, we put it to the yes list. If it's not, we ditch it. And so I just like started. Unfortunately, Google Sheets couldn't handle more than 4 letters without it being too many combinations.
My goodness.
So
That's no, this is why we're leaving it in. This is awesome. This is why I like doing this because uh this reminds me of a couple things. First, it reminds me of what Will Wheaton was once at this some Comic-Con, and this young kid comes up like 10 to 12 years old, and she goes, what do you say to people who make fun of us for the things we like? Like, how do you deal with bullies? And Will Wheaton's like, I think it's important to learn about each other because why somebody loves tetherball might be a reason why we love Doctor Who. So for that, it's something you're finding connections, and that might be somebody who's like doing fan theories, finding connect same idea, and there's this unity there. We're all looking for the same thing. We're looking for something that's comforting, and if we too quickly look at it and be like, oh my god, that's what do you do, numbers, we'll realize like the reason we're doing what we're doing is this: we're both looking for the same thing.
yeah, I mean, definitely.
And there's a great scene with Ted Lasso. We actually have it on this series, but Ted talks about being curious, not judgmental. And so, no, I think that's awesome. I think that's actually, this is going to sound nerdy, but it's actually really meaningful that you shared that, because it's just this look at things that mean something to different people. And maybe that kid actually was serious. Maybe he did mean peanut butter. Maybe it was like, no, like I like the feel of it. When I'm not doing good, I like to put peanut butter on a cracker and eat it. That's art to me.
I mean, that's her brother, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe,
Because
I
her
don't know.
brother, he turns out to be like a chef or a baker.
Oh,
He turns out to be a baker. So
oh,
like now that you say that, oh, I feel so smart right now. Like now that
yeah,
you say that though, like he actually might mean it because he's a baker. Maybe peanut butter is like art to
yeah,
him. Like it's a cooking ingredient, it's a texture, it's an intense flavor. Like I don't know. There's an argument to be made there.
yeah, exactly. And I love this idea. See, this is why this is a great podcast. Because there's this beautiful balance between like things being clear and crisp and very open to interpretation. What is meaningful? Like doing data analysts can be meaningful. It can be, it can, you may feel the same thing somebody feels when they're looking at a painting.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, what you're doing, like there's clear cut answers, but there's beauty in that. I also think of The Simpsons. There's an episode where they split the boys and girls up from each other, and they both do their own school. And I always felt like I do way better at the girls' school because it starts off Lisa's in math class and they've got like chill music going on and the lights are dimmed and they're like, how do you feel about 3? And I'm like, yeah, that's the math I want to do. And then she sneaks out, she goes to the boys and she sees they're like, oh, like, what's the remainder in this problem? And they're doing it very like direct math. And she's like, ah, oh, that looks good. So, you know what? I think what I'm getting out of this, and it's to me very cool, is how we all see the world in different ways. What we see as beauty, what we see as different. And I'm just like, oh, I hope if anybody's here who's listening to this, we got to find a way to get you connected with Anna just so you guys can have a big reaction to her data sheets. Like we should I'm going to get this podcast big enough so we have a petition where there's a full like auditorium and Anna does a presentation and everybody loses their mind. Like 10 minutes standing ovation and they're yelling encore.
I would die for that. That would be amazing.
Yeah, that's so cool. The other thing I almost picked up with, but I bashfully backed out of it, is the direction that lady takes it. Because this kid wants to do like, is it like fingers across the world?
Yeah.
And then this lady's like, we're gonna make a giant vagina. Yep. That's a statement.
She makes a big statement with it too.
Yeah. And oh god, see, now my mind's clicking because that can be both data and art too. You can use it for craft it to your will.
Yeah.
And you can probably, I'll have to have you speak on this more, but I know I've learned this. There are ways to kind of tweak data to work for you. Can you tell us like how you do that?
Oh, yeah. There's there's like this one really obvious one. I'll send you a screenshot, Joe, because you can put it up.
Yeah.
Where it's someone takes a poll and they show a graph and one column shows one, like they take a poll with 2 answers, yes or no. And the yeses like win by like, oh, it looks so much. But if you look at the numbers, the yeses are 50 and the no's are 49. But they've just drawn it so extremely that it doesn't really portray how close it is. So just like literally the like visualization of the data is totally skewed. But like also like just in a data set, like you know, whenever I take a data set, like I look for the outliers and see like why might this not be the best piece of data to include? Like I'm trying to think of like a good example, but just like something where like this would never happen again, or like this was a weird fluke, a weird mistake. I don't really want it in here affecting my averages or like affecting the results because it's not going to happen again. Or like at a company, when a process changes, you don't want to use data from before the switch because everything's different now. So it's not a really well-informed piece of information you're going to get from that. But like if you wanted to be like malicious with it, you could totally like leave that weird piece of data in, or you could grab from before whatever process switch, or you could pull too much out. You could be like, I don't know, like this is wrong and this is weird, and like you could pull too much out and totally skew an answer. There's definitely like a lot of honesty and integrity that goes into like really representing the data. Like you know, you have to like, what are you looking at, and is your end result truly representative of the whole set when you're finished?
Gosh. Yeah, that's so cool. And I remember learning, like, I wish I could remember exactly, but like if you the example we had, like if LeBron James and Shaq both played in the same basketball game, and if like Shaq had better statistics first half and the second half, but if you put it all together, it's possible that LeBron James might have overall better statistics. And it was really like, I'm like, I can't explain it well, but it's just crazy how like you talk about how, there is black and white answers, but you got to know how to get there.
Mhm.
And I see that with like, I was watching some stuff about like documentaries about how it's so easy to, I mean, there's propaganda, right? That's basically what propaganda is. Art made to make somebody feel a certain way.
I have this thought. I don't have a direction. So if you
Yeah.
don't have more on it, like I don't know. I just thought Judy is my favorite character in that show just because she's something every like little girl who's ever felt left out can totally relate
Mm.
to. And the moment where like she's got this grand idea and she's so sure it's
Oh,
the future, she's like, this is it. This is the beginning of my future. And someone else comes in and is like, la di da, let's try this and this and this, and we're gonna make a big statement that has nothing to do with what
yeah.
you ever thought. Um,
Yeah.
I totally think there's something there. I don't have a lot more
No,
thought
there
than that.
totally is. No, I didn't even think about that. That's a great point of view where I think I read that I went to a school today to meet one of the people I read with, and I'm not going to get this word for word, but it's like we believe that every student deserves an adult who believes in them, who encourages them to grow and find out all they can be.
Mhm.
And also, there's another great line from Ted Lasso, which is he talks about winning and losing. He's like, for me, it's not about winning or losing. It's about making these guys the best versions of themselves on and off the field. And that can be hard at times, but it's also hard not having somebody believe in you while you're growing up.
Mhm.
And I think, yeah, this is her passion, art. And then this lady comes in and just it's almost like she corrupts it
Mhm.
because Judy just wants to make something like I just want to make this beautiful,
Mhm.
like fingers around the world. And it goes from that to a bloodied vagina. And she's like, I didn't get to watch that whole episode, but you could tell like she was just like, no, like I don't want to do this.
Yeah. I think by the end of it, Judy does end up on board. She realizes they end up compromising somehow. And it's not really a true compromise. Like it's very much still the original like vagina's idea. But Judy like realizes the meaning in it.
Mhm.
And it comes out to be really a great moment for her too. But
Yeah.
like it's definitely tough to watch her though, because she's so disappointed. Like
Yeah.
she really thought this was like her big moment, her chance to shine, her chance to stand out and step away from this tiny town in Alaska where they live.
Yeah.
Like this was gonna be seen by the world. And to have just
Yeah.
a grown up just like kind of squish her a little bit there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think this fits perfectly in what we've been talking about. We've been talking about like seeing like what you see in data, like how there's beauty there. Like if this teacher would have stopped and said, oh, this kid has a message in there too.
Mhm.
Like I have a message here, but she's got a message too, and understand that.
Right.
Like you could pull that out of them. And I think that's so important that, for me as a leader, that's one of the most important things I do is I see what the person is. And I never think I'm not putting it in them. Like I can never be like, oh, I'm going to make you a data analyst, Anna. But what I can do is say, hey, you're really good at this. I see you're good at this. You should think more about this and building your confidence so you can bring it out of yourself.
I heard it once like kind of explained like putting coins in a bank where like when you support someone, you're like, I see your idea. I think it's good. Like you're depositing a coin.
Mm,
And like eventually someone has enough coins in their bank that like they can use it. Like, if she had put coins in Judy's bank, she would have had that confidence
mm,
to like put that art on the wall. And
mhm.
instead she kind of she hit the bank with a sledgehammer and did her own thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's, yeah, I think that's such a, I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's a really powerful image. You talked about answering meaningful questions.
Mm-hmm.
I also like just making, and if there's art everywhere, maybe there's art in how we treat others.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's art on how we treat a kid who's got this idea, even though we have a different thing.
Yeah.
And you can create great beauty out of that. And that's a really cool concept to think about, because I will always get to this point where I'm like, I think I've hit the next level of judgment where I think I'm so open-minded, and then a guy cuts me off and I'm like, well, except for this prick.
Not for you.
No, he is a jerk. And, and so like just trying to always get to that point. I it's kind of like, actually it comes from this show. I think it's the first episode. They go to a mall and they see it says elevator in process. And I think the dad goes, oh, we're all in process till we die, or something like that.
I
Like
love that.
it's okay, elevator. And I'm like, yeah, we're all in process. So yeah, no, I think a lot of meaning there. No, that was cool. I'm glad you thought of that.
I'm glad you had thoughts on it, because I was like, there's something, but I don't have all of it by myself.
Oh, totally. Good. Is there any other thoughts you have or anything else you want to cover before we wrap up?
I have one question for you.
Yes.
What do you think of if I say art?
Oh, what do I think when you say art? I think I wish I could have that instinct answer, but for me, it's probably like the opposite of you. I think such abstract.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember having this conversation with my art teacher. I'm like, what constitutes as art? We look at old like cave paintings. We're like, look at those, or old pottery. We look at those. What if in 2,000 years people look back at our stop signs and are like, oh, look at that art? And she's like, well, no, art's meant to make you feel something. And I'm like, yeah, I feel annoyed when I have to stop.
Me too.
is that not art? Is that not art making me slow down? And so for me, that's art for me, is just that I love thinking about there's infinite space to explore what is art, and just ask it. For me, art is asking those questions. And it's kind of also, I don't have one type of music I like. What I always tell people, my favorite type of music is seeing your favorite kind of music through your eyes.
That's really cool. I like that.
Because I love that. Like, I used to hate country. And then when I picked up this philosophy, I listened to country through somebody's eyes. I'm like, I get it. Or jazz. Hated jazz.
I am not a jazz person.
But I think I went to somewhere with my stepdad who loves jazz, and I saw it through his eyes. I'm like, I get it. And so for me, that's kind of art too, where I don't want to say what is or is not art, because then I miss that opportunity to see it through somebody's eyes. And for me, that's, I don't know, there's something holy or just sacred in that moment.
Yeah.
Where you experience the world through somebody else's eyes, because you're now bigger than yourself. And there's so many conflicts and just horrible things going on there. To make that one connection, I think that makes the world just a little bit better.
That makes sense. That's really cool. Yeah. I like it.
What about you? When do you consider art?
I think it's any intentional thing can be art. Like I don't necessarily think like a sunset isn't art, but taking a picture of it is. If that makes sense. It's the intent, it's the choice. And it can be like afterwards too, right? Like, if I am walking around on a beach and then I turn around and I notice that the sand is a pretty texture after I've walked around, it isn't art until I choose to name it, or I label it, or I take a picture. Not necessarily, there's a choice has been made. There's a label to it.
Yeah.
Which I think fits with yours. Like,
yeah.
there's definitely like a choice to see something through someone else's eyes. I think that totally makes sense. But yeah, I've definitely always thought like the item doesn't have to be intentional, whatever the piece
Mhm.
is, but it's the like the choice to look at it or label it or name it or capture it or display it, like that intentional choice, that's what makes something art, which
Yeah.
totally makes a spreadsheet art, by the way.
Yes. No, totally. I agree. And I love that. That's so cool. That's a great view on it because I think it gets to my heart too of intention. Your intention on something, your intention to encourage someone, your intention to and like I always like there was a scene in the Mr. Rogers movie with Tom Hanks where the reporter's like, he must be some kind of saint. And his Mr. Rogers' wife goes, he hates that word because he thinks if that's associated with him, then for some reason the things he does is unachievable then.
Mhm.
And I like that concept that intention isn't always like what I do walking beside somebody. Sometimes people need a kick in the butt. They
Yeah.
need that. Sometimes people need data to show them why this is a right way to go. And so like just the intention and making it your art form, that's intentional. So that's very cool. And we're good at this.
I think so.
Okay. So I ask every person who comes on 3 questions. So first question is, which clip did you think was funnier?
The crackers, for sure.
Yeah.
Watching Judy go nuts and be like, oh my God, I'm gonna start a business. I'm addicted to speed. Oh my God. I love her. I think I said earlier, she's my favorite character.
Yeah.
She's absolutely insane. And I
Yeah.
think that just captured her so
Yeah.
well. And it's hilarious.
Yeah. I see. I am going to go with the other one solely because of how hard I laughed at that guy going, I only joined this so I could storm out.
I love him too. It was close for sure.
But that first one was very funny too. So the second one is, which one did you think we got more conversation out of?
I definitely think the art one. I think there's a little bit more. I mean, there's always something to talk about with art, right? Like you
Yeah.
can't bring it up without asking what it is. And that's automatically like 100-page book right there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I agree. And I was actually nervous if I had picked the right clip. I was like, oh, are we gonna have enough to talk about? But yeah, no, it exploded into like so many awesome directions. I loved it. It was great. The final question is, if we had to like do a deep dive, like just analyze everything about the clip, which clip would you want to do that
okay, I really like them both.
with? I know it's tough.
It's really tough because like I feel like the art one is the easy answer because there's always
Yeah.
something more to say about art.
Yeah.
Um, but I think if I were to like go write an essay right now, it would be about the crackers. I feel like there's so much to say about like what motivates a person. What is the thing that gets behind you and kicks your butt in the morning? And for Judy, it might be speed. And for me, it might be a motivating question with an answer. And for you, it might be helping people. Like I feel like that might be where I would be like, I think there's a lot that's said on art, and I don't have more to say that someone else hasn't already put in better words. Like nothing against myself, but like art is a well explored subject. I would love to see motivation. Like
Yeah.
I think I would have
Yes.
more to add to that conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Actually, I agree. I was thinking I was gonna pick that clip as well, where like, yeah, we could definitely keep adding, but like also I would love to take the direction of like what drives a person to kind of be isolated like that
Oh,
to
yeah.
the point where they're drinking their own pee, basically. I mean, it's going through a filter, but then you can also talk about how we take, bad things and we can take them into something good. So I think there's so many things. So I'd agree with you. Okay, so as we wrap up, I always ask people if somebody listens to this and they're like, holy crud, this Anna person's cool. Can they reach out to you on social media? And if so, where could they find you?
Yeah, for sure. My Instagram is Halla, HALLA_Miller. And my LinkedIn is just Anna Halla Miller. Yes, please feel free.
Nice. Very cool. For me, I do have a second podcast called Two Voices, Two Story. Wait, no, Two Voices, One Story. There it is. And it's a podcast I do with my wife, and we take just a really deep personal look at stuff we've gone through and so forth. So check that out. Anna, thank you so much for being here. It was so much fun. I'm so glad that you were willing to come on and give us your perspective. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. This is really fun. I had a good
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everybody. We'll see you next time.
like this part you probably can't put in the podcast, but I always say like, well, future Anna can suck a dick.
I'm put whatever. We've had curses on here.
Oh, great. Future Anna can suck a dick. She
Yeah.
can do dishes tomorrow.
We've said rough words like fart. So